What's up, my comic comrades? Today we're jumping into another DC horror book that launched back in October called DC vs. Vampires. It's a 12-issue limited series that puts the entire DC universe up against vampires in this Injustice/Deceased-like story, which seems particularly relevant with Blade gearing up to make his debut in the MCU. Yes, we know, that's Marvel, but hey, comic books. So if you've ever wondered what would happen if the DC universe was overtaken by vampires, we're about to find out. And we're going to start with a breakdown of the first 2 issues of the series. Now enough chit chat, let's kick this pig. Issue 1 starts off with a mysterious figure walking towards the Hall of Justice with captions from him saying, "I know my coming here like this is dangerous, and I apologize. But I have nowhere else to go. I need your help. The world needs your help. We have met before, and I hope you might remember me. My name is Andrew Bennett, and I come to you in the most desperate hour. My journey here has not been easy. I have been forced to run, to hide, to fight. But now I fear it all comes to an end one way or another. I am alone. I am afraid. I, vampire, am being hunted. I don't know exactly who they are. They could be anyone. They draw closer with every passing day." And as we're reading captions from this mystery person, we see him crossing the street and get hit by a car. People then come to check on him and say he's got no pulse. The mystery man then gets up and we see him start catching fire, saying, "Get back." At this point, we could assume he's the vampire Andrew Bennett. He then starts crawling up the Hall of Justice stairs, when Hal Jordan Green Lantern comes in saying, "It's okay everyone, we've all seen people spontaneously burst into flames before, right? Just another normal day here at the Hall of Justice." After this, Hal Jordan brings Andrew inside to the infirmary, and once Andrew wakes up, he says, "It's not safe. I need to speak to the Justice League." Hal says, "Well, you're in luck. I'm in the Justice League. What's going on?" Andrew says, "No, I need to speak with everyone. The fate of the world is at stake." Hal says that's usually how things go around here. Unfortunately, the rest of the League is on an off-planet mission. I'm holding the fort down until they return. At this point, Zan, one half of the Wonder Twins, walks in saying, "Who is this guy, Hal?" He responds, "Zan, shut the door please. Our guest has some mild photosensitivity issues." Zan asks, "Who's gonna take his picture here?" Hal then just looks at him like, "No, I mean, he's a vampire, Zan." Andrew then asks, "What do you both know about vampires?" Zan says, "You guys are undead, right? That's creepy." Hal responds, "Show some respect, Zan." Andrew says, "It's all right, I should be more specific. What do you know about Mary, Queen of Blood?" Hal answers, "Not to get into your personal life, but she's your ex, right? And she's basically the president of vampires, right?" Andrew says, "She was my lover once, now my nemesis. Mary, Queen of Blood, is a vampire elder. She is the leader of the cult of the Blood Red Moon. Her wish is law among vampires. The delicate peace between men and vampires exists because Mary wills it so. She sets the tone all other vampires follow." Hal says, "So less George Washington and more Charles Manson." Andrew replies, "You joke, but it's because of her the vampires have mostly kept their distance from humans for the last 100 years. Hal responds, "And?" Andrew tells him she is dead. Andrew goes on to tell them she was murdered. She was the only thing holding us back from total war. Zan then tells them, "But we aren't at war." Andrew replies, "Are you sure?" Hal then says, "I have to ask. She's your ex. You have a troubled past. You even called her your nemesis. Did you kill her?" Andrew tells him no. Andrew then starts breaking down his last few weeks, saying, "I spent weeks hunting her killer, chasing rumors, crashing into dead ends, shaking down anyone who might know anything, all of which led me to one place, the Legion of Doom." He then tells Hal and Zan, "I transformed into a bat and snuck in as I needed to get to them and find out why she had been killed. But whoever had killed Mary got to them first. They were all dead. This was the work of vampires." As we see several Legion of Doom members like Solomon Grundy, Sinestro, Black Manta, and more dead. Andrew goes on to say Mary's death is not some random violent end to a violent life. It was the start of a revolution. It was part of a bigger plan. I feared at first that it would mean a coming war with the humans, but seeing their plans laid out, a shield to block the sun, human farms, and slaughterhouses, list of potential targets, and perhaps even allies, I realized the goal was not to start a war, their goal is the genocide of the human race. As we see him stumble upon the vampires' plans, Andrew continues to tell them, "I needed to get away to tell the world what was coming. But seeing what they'd already accomplished, and not knowing even who they were, I didn't know who I could trust." As we see him run into an injured Lex Luthor, who's missing one of his arms. Lex then initially thinks Andrew is one of them, but soon realizes he isn't. Luthor says, "I assumed all of you were in league together. You saw what they had planned in there. Will you fight back?" Andrew tells him, "Yes." Lex then says, "Good. Go to this address and say what you've seen here." Andrew says, "This is..." Luthor interrupts saying, "Trust me." Andrew then tells him, When I get there, how do I make them trust me? Luthor says, make them with this, as he gives him a sample of his own blood. Andrew then asks, what about you? Luthor says, I won't make the trip, but before you go, you must do something for me. Kill me. Andrew replies, I can't. Lex then says, I took a lot of them down in the fight, but my fight is over, and I refuse to let them turn me into one of you, and they refuse to kill me. Luthor then continues to say, kill me or I'll scream and they'll take both of us, vampire. At which point Andrew shows his teeth, and Luthor says, no, not like that, you fool. You need to use your hands. So Andrew strangles Luthor to death, at which point we see Scarecrow and Gorilla Grodd find Luthor's body and say, sound the alarm. Someone else was here. We can't let them leave. As we see, Grodd and Scarecrow are both vampires. With the alarm blaring, Andrew books it, but he is stopped by the Riddler, who is now also a vampire. Andrew then just stabs him in the eye with a syringe and a blood sample that Luthor gave him, causing the Riddler to turn to dust. Finally, a vampire cheetah tries to stop him, but isn't fast enough, as we see Andrew making his way to the Hall of Justice, with apparently Green Arrow following him, as we see him watching Andrew from the top of a building. We're then brought back to the present, where Andrew is finishing telling them the story, saying, I came to tell the Justice League because I didn't know who else I could trust. And then Zan says, well, I can go get the rest of them. Andrew shocked says, they're here? At which point Hal Jordan traps Zan with a construct saying, oh, I wish you hadn't said that. On the next page, Hal binds Andrew, and we learn how Jordan has been turned as well and is now a vampire. He then makes a blender with his Green Lantern ring and puts Zan in it and then turns it on, telling Andrew, I usually prefer fresh blood, but on special occasions, I don't mind a smoothie. How gross and disturbing is that? He literally put Zan in a human-sized blender, turned it on, and drank him as a smoothie, in front of Andrew, mind you. We even see a little slurp caption with Hal saying, it's a bit watery, essentially making fun of Zan's powers, which if you didn't know, he basically turns into various forms of water. Ultimately, Hal uses the light from the Green Lantern ring to burn Andrew, saying, I'm only gonna ask this once. Did you tell anyone else about our plans before you came here? Andrew replies, no, I spoke with no one. Hal then says, thank you, Andrew, for being honest with me. I will make this quick. Andrew then says, go to hell. And while Hal drinks his smoothie, he says, no need, we're bringing it here, as he kills Andrew. Hal Jordan then gets rid of his blood smoothie and the evidence before greeted by Aquaman. We are then taken to the Batcave that same night, where Bruce is returning from a night out. Alfred says, you had a visitor. He left a note. And as Batman holds the note, we see those captions from the very first 2 pages of the issue. And we see it's actually a letter Andrew left for Batman, with Alfred saying, he also wanted me to tell you that Lex Luthor might have just saved the world. As Alfred holds up the syringe that's filled with Luthor's blood. And just like that, issue 1 comes to a close. So let's jump in to issue 2. The beginning of issue 2 starts off with Hal Jordan killing Anton Arcane. A voice then asks Hal, a little much, wasn't it, Hal? Hal replies, Master, I didn't know you were here. His master says, stop, we're not doing all that. I'm here because we have a problem. Andrew Bennett. He was in the wind for a week before you finally got a hold of him. We have no idea where he went or who he spoke with. Hal responds, I don't believe he spoke with anyone. His master replies, and I don't care what you believe. We need to assume he told people our plans. Suspicions will spread. Your job is to keep those suspicions pointed away from us. You have to keep those superheroes distracted and distrustful of each other. The last thing we need is the wrong person figuring out who we are. We then see Batman has called a meeting in the middle of the day with his Bat family. Dick says, weird time for us to meet, isn't it, Bruce? And Tim follows up, and a weird place to meet. Not that we all couldn't use some vitamin D. Batman responds, that's all part of it. And Alfred made some tea. Batman then says, I was recently visited by Andrew Bennett, the vampire. He came to the front door right over there, looking for Batman. Nightwing asks, how? Then Batman tells him, I believe Lex Luthor told him my identity. This pisses off Nightwing, and Batman says, this isn't the part that upsets me. I didn't speak with Andrew. I was away at the time, but he left a note with Alfred. The contents of that note are why you are all here. Batman continues to say, I tried to track Mr. Bennett after he left here, but his trail went cold. No one on Earth has seen him, as Alfred keeps offering the Bat family tea and hot cocoa. We are then taken to a group of villains like Blockbuster, who are talking about how someone is hunting them. They then hear a noise in the bush, and we see it's Green Arrow, who comes out saying, easy now, I'm not here to fight all of you. Blockbuster says, if you aren't here to fight, what's with the arrow? Oliver replies, I said I wasn't here to fight all of you. Blockbuster then says, screw this, we can take him. Then Green Arrow just shoots an arrow through his hand, pinning him to the table. Green Arrow then says, what I'm about to say sounds absurd, but bear with me. vampires have been infiltrating the metahuman community, converting or killing anyone who could fight back against their war on humanity. And one of you is a vampire. Isn't that right, Everyman? They all look at Everyman before he goes, "You'll die for this, Archer," revealing that he's a vampire. But Green Arrow was able to put an arrow through his heart, killing him. We are then taken back to Wayne Manor, where Batman agrees with Damian's statement saying that vampires are going to look to convert the young heroes to go after and convert the older ones, such as the Titans, the Outsiders, and the Birds of Prey, before ultimately infiltrating the Justice League. Clearly, Bruce doesn't know they've already infiltrated the Justice League via the Green Lantern. Back at the Hall of Justice, the Wonder Twin sister comes out saying, "I haven't found my brother for days. I'm scared. I don't know what happened to him." Hal Jordan then goes to comfort her, knowing he actually blended him and drank him like a smoothie, which is all kinds of disturbing. Back at Wayne Manor, Batman reveals that all of their drinks were made with holy water, and that if they were vampires, it would have burned them. And they're all meeting in the sunroom instead of the cave so they could all see that the UV light coming through the window isn't hurting anyone. He then says, "Now if you'll follow me, I have something to show you." Batman then takes them down to the Batcave, where he has them hold a crucifix just to triple check and make sure they're not vampires. At this point, Batman tells all of them, "Now we can begin. These are our new tools." Batgirl asks, "These will help us catch vampires?" He tells her, "Half measures are not an option anymore. We aren't trying to catch them." Nightwing then says, "So you're expecting all of us to kill now?" Batman tells him, "You can't kill them. They're already dead." Damian then picks up a crossbow and says, "Cool." A little bit after this, Alfred asks Bruce, "Why didn't you tell them about Lex Luthor's blood sample?" And he says, "Putting your trust in someone else is always a gamble. I trust them, especially after today. But the fate of humanity is at stake here, and that's not mine or anyone else's to gamble with." Elsewhere in Rhode Island, we see Barry Allen meet up with Hal Jordan. We see that Hal asks Flash to speak with him. Hal starts saying, "I know that if something bad happened to me, you'd be the first on my side." Barry says, "Same." Hal continues to say, "I would. I really would. And you know when something good happens to me, I want you there with me too, right?" Well, something good did happen to me, something wonderful, and I wanted it to happen to you. As he starts constricting Barry with an insect construct, saying, "I tried, I argued for you, but my lord said the way your powers work, your metabolism and your speed, they said your hunger would cause a genocide." Barry then asks, "What are you talking about?" Hal then says, "They said you would drink the planet to death. I argued for you. I knew they were right, but I argued. They wouldn't let me turn you. I always forgot how powerful you are when you cut loose." Barry then says, "Hal, this isn't you. Listen to me." Hal then gets close to Barry's face saying, "No, Barry, this is me." As he snaps Barry's neck with the construct saying, "I'm so sorry, Barry. I wanted to conquer the world with you." And with that, issue 2 ends. Man, killing off Barry Allen Flash is a heck of a way to end the second issue, and a crazy cliffhanger heading into issue 3. Altogether, I would say that this is shaping up to be another awesome Elseworlds type story in the DC universe. First we had Injustice, then we had Deceased, and now we have DC versus vampires. I freaking love it, and I cannot wait to see where it leads. Who lives, who dies, and who becomes a vampire. But now it's your turn. What do you guys think of this new series? Let us know down in the comments. And that's going to bring today's episode of Variant to a close. But if you like this episode, check this one out right here. And if you like all of our content, subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the channel grow. But other than that, I'll see your lovely faces next time when I talk about all things comics.